Hello, hello, hello. I'm gonna give it just a second to get everybody in. And then I do want to cover a couple of things before we get like really started. Just because there's a couple of things I've seen that I've seen a couple of things that worry me per se. So I've seen people talking about Detonate Dead and such, and you really probably don't want to do Detonate Dead as much. So the ashes are really, really solid. They're actually really good. However, the thing that people don't realize about the ashes unique weapon is that it worked really well with how Detonate Dead used to work, not so much how Detonate Dead works now, which is significantly different. So just something to keep in mind that you most likely do not want to have that at a super like out of this world value on Detonate Dead with the ashes. Most likely what you would want to do, because the nerf to corpse life is absolutely huge. And with that nerf to corpse life being absolutely huge, it does make it where, it does make it where you can easily get yourself into a bad scenario where you are going to be stuck, you like dealing a lot less damage than you think you are going to be able to do. Because what deals damage for most people on Detonate Dead is not Detonate Dead itself, it is Vol Detonate Dead. However, you need to have enough AoE for one Vol Detonate Dead to carry you till the next Vol Detonate Dead. If you do want to go with the ashes build, most likely like you're gonna have to mule a couple of either Marauders, Templars, or Scions to get the ashes mace. Then once you have the ashes mace, what you'll want to do is level an elementalist so you can get the 100% ignite, and then you can either play Volatile Dead if you just want a lot of baby hits and you just want to kind of cake roll through everything little, or Cremation if you want to hit the really big stuff, or if you want to self-cast, you could do something like Firestorm for clearing everything out, or Flame Blast, I believe it's called, if you want to go ahead and get everything, you know, in a really good place. So here's what we start with. Okay, so this is what all raiders start with. Now we're going to use the bow and the quiver to start off with, and we're going to go ahead and use this setup. Now we want this glass shank, we don't necessarily want these two, so we'll go ahead and have the glass shank here. Then what we may want to, well, I can't mule yet, but we do want to get that shield, the Remnant of Empires. And let me see if I can pull up what we need to mule for that. Remnant of the Empire. Okay, that's pulling up a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Let's type in PoE afterwards. And remember, when you are looking at stuff, to always give it to poewiki.net. That is the one that is GGG funded, and not the one that is absolutely devastatingly full of ads and begging for your money. The other one is GGG hosted, so you don't have to worry about it as much. Okay, so to get Remnant of the Empires, it is everybody but Ranger, which is crazy. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and mule a duelist as well, just because it gives me muley dually. Oh, lovely. Gotta love spam bots. They're the best. Yeah. All right, so on here, you'll notice that we have our Remnant of the Empires. With the Remnant of the Empires, this is something that we're just going to basically throw in our stash, and then we'll switch back over to the Raider. But this thing is really, really good. And I know a lot of people, like I've seen a couple of videos talking about how evasion builds might not be as great simply because of the fact that like flicker spiders and things like that exist. This is why being able to do a very high block build with basically one piece of gear and a couple of points on the tree is very, very useful, because it essentially, block works very similar to evasion, where you're taking a giant chance of not getting hit. And when you combine both of those, it works very, very well as far as containing that, which is wonderful. But we got about 20 minutes or so before we actually get started with the league. And so, but yeah. Plus, we can also take off these flasks and just beeline it over real quick. Exit to character selection. We'll go ahead and go into Endless Delve, Solo Self Found. Go back over here. We'll go ahead and set up our cosmetics and all that fun jazz. That way we can go ahead and be prepared. What do we want to do? I could do Arctic theme. We could do the classic, like Divine Skull type thing. Harvey doesn't look too terribly bad. Ooh, Master Spellblade looks pretty good. Or Nightfall always looks good. Same with like Pitch Black. So many choices, so many choices. I think what I want to go with, I think I want to go ahead and go Arctic for this, just because we're going to be mainly playing a cold conversion, essentially. And that'll make it where it's fun. And I believe I have the ice. I think I have an ice, or maybe maybe it's Hydra that I normally use, or Harvey. We'll go ahead and just use Harvey. Ooh. Maybe we do something deep water. That actually looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Our essence wings. We can go ahead and get a couple of little frost pet guys here, an ice tiger and an ice frog. Go ahead and set our portal. If y'all have any questions whatsoever, now is a excellent time to ask questions, because we're just kind of chilling for a little bit here until essentially everything gets started. Is it the ice stuff that actually looks... I think the ice stuff might actually look better if I remember correctly. I think I have gloves and boots. Maybe even chest? Do I have ice chest? Does not look like it. Okay. And then let's go ahead and give them the... We want Harvey eyes, blue eyes, so it's all White Walker-y. And then we can go ahead and select our level up ring, so it'll have very, very visible anytime that we level up. And so essentially what the plan is here is we are going to use Burning Arrow probably for a little bit. Then we'll come back and well, we're gonna swap over to our mule once we get really close. I was just going to get this guy all set up. So we're gonna swap over to our mule. You do need to mule one character. You don't need to go into the delve at all with that character. Essentially all you're gonna do is dump everything into a stash tab and exit out and go over. The thing we actually really want is the Remnant of Empires. Now, since we don't have Vol Orbs yet, we're not going to go ahead and Vol it. We're just going to equip it. Once we have a good chunk of Vol Orbs, then I would suggest muling a couple of these guys. And we want to hit either extra chance to block spell damage or extra chance to block flat. Either of those is super good and just gives us a little more survivability. Plus, note that we are going to be getting endurance charges natively off this shield, and we're also going to be getting resistances natively off this shield, as well as it'll help with things like flicker spiders and things of that nature that do happen in Delve and are just a little bit scarier. So just something to keep in mind. But that's the reason we're in here. If you are already starting out and you are already logged into Delve and you're following along with me, I did go ahead and take the evasion and life nodes and accuracy and attack damage node. That way it makes it where it's nice and smooth. But we'll get started here. I believe the league starts here in about 15 minutes or so. And so that'll be fun once that gets going. The POB as well as how to set up the delve filter is in there. The delve filters you want to use is either this. Whoops. You either want to use the Endless Delve Fixed or the Endless Delve Fixed Strict. Just personal preference. But both of those can be found on that file. So just load one of those. I would recommend loading before starting the league just to make your life even easier if you do want to use a filter that is built for Endless Delve. So it's going to filter out a lot of stuff that you're just not going to be able to use and make things that aren't filterable out. So you'll notice like maps, for instance, all the maps are going to be filtered out because you can't use maps. You can't go to your hideout. And so it's things like that. And the strict one is a little more strict than the non-strict one. But it should filter out basically. Why is that not changed? Interesting. I'll have to load it again. Weird. This was all turned off. Is all this turned off? Why is none of this turned off? Interesting. Well, I'm glad I double checked. So like this one isn't filterable, but I can turn it way down and I can just uncheck all that and turn off sound and everything. So it's, you barely notice it. These should be hidden. Hide, hide, hide. Hide, hide. Hide. Well, we're doing the speed running, fixing the filter real quick. Hide, hide, hide. Hide. Luckily, if you're linked to it, it should automatically update as I update it. So that part's good. Okay, that's disabled. Disable. Contracts. Why is it so weird? Hide, hide, hide. Hide. hide, hide. Currency is currency. Okay, currency setup. Okay. I'm on fixed, I believe. Semi-strict. Okay. Okay, it's now synced, so that part is fixed. And then all you have to do in here to load it is just come here. If you have multiples like I do, you'll just come down to where it says fixed and hit the reload. And as you can see, it updated successfully. All you had to do is hit the reload and it'll refresh all the changes I just made. For whatever reason, that was messed up. I will eventually go to this filter. I probably won't go to this filter day one, just so you're aware. The other thing is, if you want a different filter setup than this, like if I haven't updated the strictness or whatever, you can just come over here and drag the strictness up, go to save and export, and then you can always just create a new filter and name it whatever. And you can do that in this config too. And so make your life a little bit easier on the Delve filter side of things. And so we got a little over 10 minutes. And then what we're going to be doing is running over our stash tab, dumping everything, switching over to our raider, which is already kind of set up. Now, the other thing about muling a duelist is you also do get chance to bleed and double strike. These aren't necessarily the best of skill gems for us, but chance to bleed isn't horrible. Now, the other thing you can always do is like socket it in here if you do want to use double strike. Now, why you would use double strike early on as a raider, no idea, but in case you wanted to. These weapons, like this one's not horrible just because we get the extra frenzy charge early. And it does give us movement speed, and it does give us frenzy charge on kills and AoE. This isn't as good as crit for most of the stuff that I made the build guide for. However, it can be very good early on. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I personally prefer using the claw because it has a ton of crit on it, and that crit can carry you a very long way, where the sword is a little more limited. However, if you're doing something that just wants as much frenzy charges as humanly possible, sword's not a bad option until you get a reasonable claw. But chance to bleed is actually not the worst of support gems, so we can go ahead and socket it in here, and that way when we get our frost blades or whatever, we can go ahead and throw it on over. If you want to do that. I'm not going to, but you can absolutely do that. And so we're just kind of waiting for the event to start here. The mana flask is going to be kind of more important than the small life flask early on. So kind of just keep that in mind. It just helps us go that much faster. If you are playing this event and you haven't played a endless delve before, or you're not familiar with low level delving, it is very, very hard for the first node or two because you don't have enough gear in your spots to take the amount of damage that is incoming. So if you die in the first node or two, it's okay. Like, that just kind of happens. You just have to think of it that you don't have gear. All right, there's our 10-minute timer. And so it's perfectly fine, you know, nothing to worry about or anything like that. Just kind of make the best of it. But it may be rough until you have a helmet, body armor, gloves, boots. I don't recommend if you are in like team not wearing body armor while you're leveling, because it does technically slow you down. I would advise that you do go ahead and wear a chest piece and delve, especially if you can get either armor or evasion. Those are the two that we really want to. Also, just a side note, if you are having struggles with evasion. On most of these builds, we're pathing to at least here, or over here and over here. Remember that you can always come down and get iron reflexes. If you prefer armor versus evasion, you can absolutely do iron reflexes. It's perfectly fine. If you go iron reflexes though, you may want to swap grace, if grace is in the build guide, over to determination. It will just give you a little bit better quality of life. So that's just something to keep in mind. Also, these block nodes right here, deflection is very, very good. Also, the retaliation here and the testudo are very, very good nodes, as well as this gives you life recovery on block, which is very, very handy. So note that this is another way of getting a lot of survivability, is just getting these guys. These will also increase your base block, and you can also get flat mana and life gained on block, which are both super, super good. So kind of keep that in mind as well. And you can also get elemental elements while holding a shield. That's only relevant if you're not going this way and before we have our passive. But essentially, once you have these and we have the, let me go ahead and pull up Path Building. I did not realize I did not have that up, which would really, really, really help illustrate the point I'm trying to make. So essentially what you want to do once you are starting in on any of these guys is, you'll notice I come get this really quickly. As soon as you get Avatar the Veil, that gives you elemental immunity. And before that, we get phasing and a bunch of spell suppress damage. Now, you can level either Way of the Poacher first or Quartz Infusion first. That's more personal preference. And then basically either way you go, it's basically how long do you want to wait till you get elemental immunities. So if you want to get elemental immunities fast, you just get Quartz Infusion and Avatar of the Veil, which I believe is at 56, and you're fully elemental immune. Now, before that, you can always run Purity of Elements, and that will give you full elemental immunity until you hit this point. Now, the other thing is, like, so I'm going to do Helix most likely. Okay, so there is a little bit of differences in this tree compared to some of the others. I don't know why that one doesn't have point blank. It should. So one of the things you want to look at is whatever tree you're using. Like, you'll notice these are really here for if you want to run Poisonous Concoction. If you're not running Poisonous Concoction, you don't necessarily need those particular nodes. And so, but this will be better for most of them. Spectral Helix is slightly different. As Spectral Helix, you do want to do a little more converting. Now, these nodes, you're not going to want to get early. These are very late game nodes. Right here, you want to focus on Claws of the Hawk, get all that crit. I do believe you want to do that as well and get the Fizz to Cold conversion, just in case you happen to get a Fizz Claw. If you don't get a Fizz Claw, you don't have to do these nodes. But if you get a Fizz Claw, you really want these nodes. Just kind of a heads up thing. But essentially, so kind of my plan here is I'm going to kind of beeline it up through this and go into... well, I'll probably stop once I get Charisma on this portion, and then I will probably come and get all of these nodes and get Corrupted Blood immunity, because that's very, very useful in Delve. Very, very useful in Delve. Once I do that, I will most likely start beelining it through all this to go ahead and come down here and get Point Blank and Lethality Entrenched, and then Fangs the Frost if I happen to have a Fizz weapon at the time. And then we'll just kind of keep filling in from there. The earlier you get, I can't remember if it's Lithe Shade or Lethe Shade. I believe it's Lethe Shade, even though it sounds really, really weird to say it that way. Just note that this is really, really strong in Delve for being in the darkness itself. Once you have basically elemental immunities. Now you want to get that before you get, you want to get elemental immunities first before you get this guy. But once you have elemental immunities, this guy is pretty strong. But looks like we are just about ready to start. So I'm going to mute the mic, step away for just a second, stretch a little bit, and then we'll get started. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask. I will try to keep an eye on chat as best as I can. That way I can answer things that come up. I now have it on both screens too, so that should help me not miss it, other than my main monitor, of course. So it looks like we got about 3 minutes. Again, we're just going to dump all this really quickly in our stash tab. Swap over. Scrolls of Wisdoms are very, very strong early on. That's the other thing that is nice about muling, is you get extra scrolls which can be used for skill gems through Lily. As you can see, Lily is here even though she is not normally. She should have every skill gem imaginable in there. I don't believe you get them leveled through her though, if I remember correctly from the last Endless Delve. The other thing is this is going to be our first Endless Delve event since Arch Nemesis. So some things may need to be adjusted. We'll kind of just have to see how bad it is. I'm expecting it early on to be about the same, and then much later on to be much more difficult. The other thing is if you care specifically about levels and you're not trying to race down, remember in Delve you can always go sideways to keep the difficulty about the same. And if you hit depth like 82, 83, you shouldn't get very many mods, but you should still get about the same XP as the people that are dealing with more mods. And so it's a very safe way to get higher levels if that is something that you are interested in. All right, 1 minute till league starts, so we are almost ready to rock and roll. And then we will get started. The other thing is if you are looking at the Ashes builds, like if you're wanting to do an Ignite Elementalist, for instance, I did talk about that a little bit earlier, but now's a good time to mention it as well. You may want to deeply consider not doing DD, because DD does not work the way that people think it works anymore because of all the changes and nerfs. If you do want to go that route, I would suggest playing, and you want to use minions specifically, I would suggest going Elementalist, and I would suggest using Volatile Dead with Desecrate and the Ash Maces, I believe they are. That will give you probably a better experience than if you aren't going that way. Just a heads up. So we'll grab our Remnant here, talk to Lily real quick, and let's go ahead and get our Frostblades, Onslaught, And yeah, we can just use Chance the Poison for right now. That'll work. And then we'll come back and do Volley here in a minute. So these first couple are going to be rough. There's really not anything you can do about it. It's just because you don't have armor or anything. Frostblade should help us quite a bit here. Just because of the chills. I forgot to grab flasks.
My mana is gone.
And I had extra flasks. That's unfortunate. This is substantially easier for these first couple ones. So far, going this route. Just having that cold is huge. Cold especially, well, cold throughout all of Delve is pretty good, but especially early,
I'm still breathing.
cold is very, very good. Wool gloves, we'll take it. Shabby jerkin, we'll take it. All right, we'll go ahead and go sideways here. Go ahead and identify and equip gloves. The nice thing is you don't really need portal scrolls for anything other than if you are like you can just use logout macro instead of portal scrolls. So you really don't need portal scrolls for anything. Just know it will reset that delve if you do logout macro. Like you'll have to redo the delve all over again. Compared to like normal. So we don't want to swap out this shield for a very, very long time. You can almost use this shield till in game just off of its block. Now eventually you'll want to get a better shield just due to defenses, or if you get like a shaper shield or whatever that has a recovery mechanism on block, that will really help.
The worms will have to wait a bit longer for this meal.
Couple of iron rings are pretty good. Boots, gloves, nailed fist. Nice. Those are all good things. Go ahead and level up all of our wonderful skill gems. Go ahead and grab attack speed and accuracy here, and then we'll continue on. And as this isn't an actual league start, I probably won't go very long today. Like I'll probably pick it up again fairly early in the morning. But I'll probably go for a couple of hours. And then I'll have to take a dinner break, and most likely I won't play again. After that point. Okay. And while we do want to eventually go into claws, just note that you don't have to, like, you don't want to use the first claw that you see, if that makes sense, unless you get like a crazy good unique really early, which can happen. But really we want to be in claws simply because the claws have better bases than daggers do. Even though daggers have higher potential crit on the item itself, claws just have better recovery features typically than daggers do. I personally like the flat recovery options on claws, which I believe are like Gemini, or the high level ones. That's my preferred. And we are at 4, so we can get volley. Which volley's pretty good, but we may just keep going. This is actually pretty simple. We may just keep going till 8, because at 8 we get added cold, which is a very significant DPS increase. Volley is okay, but it's not
That would only slow me down.
super significant. Okay, mana. Life flask, very, very good. Do we need any of this? Okay, we can get rid of this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And this, let's go ahead and ID these gloves. Cold, sweet, those are better. Yeah, I figured they would not be good enough, sadly. And you're not really worried about colors as much with Delve because you do get the free 3 links that are all white, which is really nice just from a quality of life perspective
My mana is gone.
on doing the endless delve thing. What are we at? 4. You would also get dash, which is actually fairly helpful too. You don't really need that shield no matter what rules are on it. The other thing is Delve is essentially solo self-found, specifically because you can't leave the Delve area. Always good to upgrade those early level flasks. And so,
Pain brings strength.
okay.
That's nature for you.
So we're like 3 levels behind the fastest person, which is not too shabby because we should catch up here fairly soon. Another thing to especially early on, those hybrid
That would only slow me
armor evasion stuff, like equipment, is really strong. Because the metrics are much higher earlier than they are later. Like there's no penalties. So specifically early on, if you're choosing between like pure evasion or pure armor, the hybrid stuff is really good. It does fall off though, so just something to kind of be aware of is that it will eventually start falling off. All right, abandon amplifier. If I remember correctly, this is going to be those machinations or whatever they're called. Are a little bit on the harder side, even though these guys are obviously fairly easy. Yeah.
That would only slow me down.
Viper Strike is another one that it is perhaps a little underrated for how good it is for like tanky stuff early. So if you're at a place where like you are having a hard time early on with like something being more tanky, then you can always use a Viper Strike in the shield, and that should really help carry you, as it is a lot of damage over time, especially early, which does help.
That would only slow me down.
So we're just kind of plugging away here. Go ahead and swap out to those better rings. Clear out some room here.
I put you out of your misery.
We're hitting a good path where we're going to just keep going down, so we should catch up a little bit here. The more down you can go, the faster you will level. So that's something that is worth noting. So it's higher monster levels, obviously, the further down that you go. And it's okay to be like a little bit under where the monster level is, as long as you're comfortable dealing with it. If it's your first time, you may want to stay kind of close to monster level. If you're more experienced, you can skip ahead. Kind of the rule of 4. You don't want to be more than 4 under or 4 over until you're at like level 82, 83. Then it's basically maxed, if I remember correctly. Ooh, large mana, thank you. We also want to hit Azurite a lot until we start seeing Delve fossils. Fossils are huge just because that's going to be our best way of crafting gear, is to fossil craft.
My mana is gone.
And then since we're at 7, once we level again, which hopefully we do here, we will okay. We'll go ahead and head back once we hit 8 and into Delve. And go ahead and get Added Cold and like Molten Shell, a little bit of quality of life stuff. And we'll get like Volley, you know, the little stuff. And welcome, welcome, welcome in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We are just frostblading at the moment till we get a little bit higher and can use... let's go ahead and go back to the encampment real quick. We're just gonna dump essentially everything that's not an immediate direct upgrade. I guess we should identify those. I like having double stats there. Okay, let's go ahead and get a couple of gems. So we're gonna go ahead and get Volley in there, as well as Added Cold. Now you can also use like LMP, really more personal preference than anything else. We also do want to get a dash, and we do want to get a Molten Shell to start leveling.
Time and tide wait for no man.
And then we're in pretty good shape. Actually, I may redo that path. Let's go that way instead. I should have leveled there. Guess we can do that real quick. Then we'll go there. Work on removing some of those immunities early. Just make our quality of life slightly higher. Also, if you really want to make a lot of currency early on, Frostblades is a very cheap build, and because it innately clears fairly fast, it is very, very good at early leveling. And because you want uniques that essentially have plus frenzy charges on them everywhere, in the normal game, more so than for Delve specifically, it is very, very handy in that regard. So just something to be aware of. If you just want to make a lot of currency and kind of go fast and not deal with bosses so much and transition over to maybe like Flicker Strike or something like that later. Very solid option for that.
I'm not up to that just yet.
All right. And bang. Okay. Let's go ahead and set up Molten Shell off left click just so it's up a lot.
My mana is gone.
Forgot to get Ancestral Call. That's what I probably should be running instead of Volley. But I'm not too worried about it, as we are going to change out of this in a few levels. So it's kind of whatever. And once we get Spectral Helix going, it's a very different play style because of the way it scales. Oh no. Rip. I got trapped there.
Good tidings to you.
Well, let's go ahead and get Ancestral Call over Volley. That will give me a little bit better clear. Alright. We'll go back and try that again. Hopefully it will work a little bit better this time around.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Avoid ailments. And we're gonna kind of beeline it to Corrupted Blood there.
As the prey grows more fierce, so must the huntress.
Oh, that was big. Large mana, leather belt, very nice. Okay, dupe, Corrupted Blood, and then let's start getting a little bit of damage. That also means we get Whirling Blades, which is fantastic. Whirling Blades is lovely.
My mana is gone.
Absolutely lovely. And we're like 2 levels away. So we'll probably just wait for that. For those 2 levels to clear, and then we'll do the we'll get Spectral Helix and Whirling Blades. And like I said, it really is kind of like a completely different feel once you get the Spectral Helix going, as then essentially it's, you know, how much stuff do you have around you at all times? And you get a lot of repeating hits, which is also very nice. And we get a lot higher cold damage off of Spectral Helix as well. Sapphire Ring, fantastic. Oh, nice. Got some good resonators there. Let's go ahead and grab those blues. And we shall go ahead and tap down here to the 14. Go ahead and get our LE reses and some more flat damage.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Being surrounded with frost blades is a little bit different than Spectral Helix, just because of Spectral Helix, because the way it works and it goes around. You do get a little more defenses innately, which is kind of nice, especially when you have high cold. And we may beeline it to the cold conversion instead of the way that I was originally planning on pathing, just because it is very nice. Oh, Tim's on. Tim might be playing Delve. He does like his RF, and RF is really good for this as well. Slightly worse, actually, I would say, for Solo Selfbound, even though it is playable, just because you don't get the Scorch Boots, and the Scorch Boots are like a lot of RF's AoE, so just something to consider. Like, the only thing that really gets nerfed with these builds as far as not having ease of access of gear is Spectral Shield Throw is a little bit harder to play, just because of that. But everything else is very much usable. And it's just because of the rarity of the shield and the Legion only part of the Jewel are the only things that really impact Spectral Shield Throw. So you can still do it, it's just rarer. More than likely you'll have to craft a shield.
I'm not up to that just yet.
And some of these guys are zooming, man. It's crazy. Oh, Quicksilver, that's nice. And a Greater Mana Blast. Ooh, I think we are 12. Let's go back to town real quick and get our stuff again. Yep, BR12. Fantastic. Okay, that felt slightly better. And I'll eventually, like, sort my tabs. I'm just not gonna slow down right now to do that. What did we need to get? Life tap. It would be good to have one of those leveling. And then we need to get Spectral Helix. There we go. We do not want Ancestral Call with that. We want... this early on, probably additional accuracy. Now, the other thing with Spectral Helix, I will kind of say, is you do want to have a skin for it more than likely. Just because Spectral Helix is a little hard on the visibility scale. Actually, what we may do is just do added fire. That may actually be... yeah, added fire is a little bit better. So we'll just do added fire. And then let's go ahead and get... do we get banner yet? We do get shield charge. And we can put life tap in there, and then whirling blades. Oh, and we run precision now. Sweet, precision is good. Whirling blades is fantastic. Let's put precision there. And get it off there. Fantastic, fantastic. Let's go ahead and hit this currency. And so now we actually get to use Spectral Helix, which is awesome.
I'm not up to that just yet.
And this is where Spectral Helix is really good. Because you can just kind of make the AoE field around you. And just kind of freeze everything. Let's go ahead and go over because we really want to get those levels. And at this point in time, we're just going to kind of go down that progresses as much as possible. Sadly, I did not get the best mind start for that, but that's okay. I'm not planning on being the one of the 3 raiders that hit the end or anything like that. Like I'm not planning on taking it that seriously. We'll probably get to 80, 85, something like that, and call it. I went really hard in December last time with the events, but that was also because it was not my favorite league, if I remember correctly, and I was getting a little tired of it. Where they kind of reversed it this time. I kind of like the events being in December a little bit more than November, but if they needed the development time, I 100% understand. And I would rather them do something like this than start up a league and it not be good. Because I don't think they're in a position where they can afford to do that. And keep the dwindling player base that is still concerned about the game.
I'm not up to that just yet.
It's also going to be very interesting with the news posts coming out. I will try to make videos about the news posts. I wish they would time them and it be less like you just have to find it. If they do happen while I'm doing this, feel free to say something and wing hop out for a second and go over them. Because I think that that's probably a little more interesting, at least to me, is kind of what they're planning on the future. Especially because the posts that are supposed to be coming out are going to be like Arch Nemesis, which is going to be a big one. I have a feeling that that will really shape the community reaction to the league more so than anything else. More so than it actually being a good league is whether they're doing something about Arch Nemesis or not. Can we go down, please? Thank you. And the other one that'll be really interesting is immunities, elemental immunities, or if they're gonna change like the way elemental resistance stuff work. I would really like to see that, just because I think that's something that hasn't felt good for a long time. I also have been playing a little Diablo 2 Resurrected. That's been fun. And just because, like, I miss... So the things that Diablo 2 specifically, not so much 3, but the things that Diablo 2 did really, really well, and playing the remastered version now just because it has a lot of quality of life improvements. Not that it's necessarily a better game, but I really like the controller support. Personally, and I wish Path of Exile's controller support was as smooth. I haven't tried it lately, so I may give it a try again and see if it's better than it was, but it didn't have like it didn't have nearly enough last time I tried it. It felt like you needed the keyboard and mouse. And again, this is where Spectral Helix excels, is at these end game.
My mana is gone.
Just having a billion blades and them terrorizing everything. Actually, that knife could... I think technically now they can get reasonable rolls. Oh, we got 4 more things. Let's... Don't die. Don't die, don't die. Okay, cool. Next 2 levels, we'll get a huge amount of cold convert, which will really help for this early on part of it. The other thing is cold. The Delve cold rolls can be very, very good. The incursion and Delve rolls mods that you get on gear. So that is the other thing that we're going to kind of try to pinpoint as we get further down. As those are just kind of good things to look out for. Okay, Dust the Altar. Another one that Spectral Helix is pretty good for.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Get a bunch of these going just to clear that out. I'm guessing it's decks. We haven't got a lot of decks. We'll get a bunch of decks here pretty shortly. I do want to go ahead and get the damage first. And get that nice cold convert. It just opens up when we can upgrade our weapons pretty substantially.
My mana is gone.
All right. Oh, we're at 19. We can go ahead and get Herald of Ice. That will be huge. And we should be able to get Defiance Banner as well, I believe. Let's go ahead and do that. And go ahead and upgrade our Life Flask while we're on it.
hiding to you.
Okay, what do we need to get? We need to get... I was just talking about it. Herald. Okay, it needs Ent. And Defiance banner. Okay, we rock that already. Did we have... Let's see if we have anything that has... that can have Ent on it. Nope. Ent. No, but that does have double res. That has cold though. I'm gonna just test this to see what that says. Okay, it says it's slightly higher. We'll try it.
I'm not up to that.
Because it does have flat cold, which is nice. We will try the Frenzy Sword and see how that goes. We do like Frenzy Charges after all as a raider. All right. So we need to be on the lookout for Ent gear. That way we can start using Herald of Ice, which will significantly increase our clear speed and our overall damage, which will be absolutely fantastic. Ooh, grand, fantastic. Double grand. Yes, please. Any of that? No, not really. Okay.
Looks like this land and I are
Okay,
coming to an
20.
understanding.